All right, greetings YouTube and fellow cigar box guitar enthusiasts. Del Puckett here, and today's lesson is the blues box. Okay, so I'm using this square illustration here to illustrate an idea or a concept to help you play blues music easier. So if you can think of each one of these squares as a measure, and I have them here numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This is a 12-bar blues progression. So this very first line here, 1 through 4, these are the first 4 measures of your blues progression. So typically we're going to do what they call the root of the key, or we're going to call it 1. Okay, 1 is the root or whatever key our song is in. And so it's going to be that whatever chord that is. So for example, if we're in the key of E, that would be the 1 chord would be E. So this whole first line here, we're just going to do the 1 chord. So we get up to the 5th measure is where we switch to the 4 chord of the key. Again, so if I'm in the key of E, the 4 chord would be A. So for the 5th and 6th measure, we're going to be jamming on the 4 chord. Then on the 7th and 8th measure, we go back to the root of our key. All right, that's pretty easy to follow, right, so far? All right, which brings us to our 9th measure, our 9th square here. This is what they call the turnaround. This is where you're going to go to the 5 of the key, typically, then to the 4 on measure 10, then back to the 1 on measure 11, and then back to the 5 here. Or I mean, once you get into this turnaround area, it really does open up a can of worms where you can actually do a lot of cool things here. So just real quick review here. We are approaching a 12-bar blues scenario, and we're subdividing it into each of its 12 measures, right? So the first 4 measures, typically we're going to just rock out here on the root of the chord. The 5th measure, we're going to go to the 4 chord, and we're going to be playing the 4 chord for 2 measures, measures 5 and 6. On measures 7 and 8, we go back to the root of the key, right? So that begins the beginning of the turnaround. Measure 9 is where the turnaround begins, and this is just a typical standard turnaround, which is just 5, 4, 1, 5. So again, we can get all technical and creative and artistic on the turnaround, which this last chord here, number 12, right, is designed to pull you right back in to the beginning of this whole cycle. Okay, so we're going to play it over and over again, right? We're just going to march right through it. And so typically you just got to count whatever the measure or the count of the song is. You just count off a measure, and that's 1, right? So I'll give you an example of that. All right, for this example, I'm tuned E, B, E. So this would be the E chord. So if I'm playing blues in the key of E, my 1 is going to be just the open. Okay, so the first 4 measures, I'll just be going. So that brings me up to the 5th measure, which is the 4 chord. And the 4 chord is right here at the 5th fret. So that was measures 5 and 6. Now we're going to go back to the root for measures 7 and 8. Now here we are at the turnaround, measure number 9. The 5 chord is up here at the 7th fret. Going to go down to the 4 chord, then back to the root. And you can go up to the 5, back to the top. So you can break down literally hundreds and thousands of songs into this little skeleton structure format, and you'll see this is like just kind of like a model progression. Now there's a lot of cool things that you can do beyond this, but this is like to kind of get you started. So that's it. Blues box in a little visual representation to help you kind of visualize mentally, kind of like how to go through the progression. And this applies to any key. It could be G, you just start off with the 1 chord in G, go to the 4 and the 5 chord. So whatever key you're in, that way you don't have to memorize the names of the chords, you just memorize the number of the chord in the key, and you're jamming. All right, so one of the cool tricks I like to do is start and stop your progression from the 9th measure, from the beginning of the turnaround. Here's an example. So what I did is I started at the turnaround, and that kind of led me into, like, you can call this the verse or whatever, right? So starting and stopping on the turnaround is a cool little trick. So if you're going to end the song, you're going to want to stay on the 1 for the last final time here. So if you're playing the turnaround and you want to end the song, instead of going to the 5 chord here and wrapping around to the first, you're just going to go through this line and you're going to repeat it just like all these other ones, just on the 1, right? So here's an example of that. All right, so have fun with that blues box. All right, I had to use a ruler to keep all my lines straight. Hey, but remember, good ergonomic practices begin with you. All right.